Okay, so hello to everybody and welcome to panel 3, which sort of explores concepts within the show A Distinct Order that's organized by the British Council. My name is Jack. I am a person of Chinese descent. I am based in Malaysia. I have short hair, I wear glasses, and right now I have on a black batik shirt with golden decorations and design. And I am a feminist tech activist. I'm one of the people who is behind Malaysia Design Council, Malaysia Design Archive, no council. It's an independent community archive that looks at visual culture and history and it sort of explores social relationship and history from the perspective of visual culture. And I have with us three really badass and awesome artists whom I will let them to sort of describe themselves and also introduce themselves to you. Let's start with Josephine.
Hello, everybody. I'm very happy to be here. Before I get started introducing myself, I am Josephine Chime. My ethnicity is Nigerian, Igbo. I'm a dark-skinned Black woman wearing a black beret, a funky tie-dye baby blue pink T-shirt with Nigerian African print as the backdrop and gold hooped earrings. And yeah, so short intro about me. I'm based in East London. I'm a mixed media artist, transgressing the ideas of accepted beauty through deconstruction of the body, And a lot of my work goes between art and design. So I've done lots of installations and products and illustrations and sculpture for all different types of music, film, and fashion. And my art practice is mainly about trying to get people to understand what molds their idea of beauty and how does technology play a part in that. So thank you for having me.
Thanks so much, Josephine. I'm really glad to have you here with us today and really looking forward to the conversation. Deepali, would you like to introduce yourself?
Okay. Hi, everybody. I too am very happy to be here. My name is Deepali. I'm an Indian. I wear glasses and I have long hair. I'm wearing just a very plain black top because I've just hopped off a flight. I'm at my mom's place and it is really noisy over here, so pardon all that. But apart from that, um, I do art and I work with videos and sound and drawings and paintings. Largely, what I do is I study and question and investigate social structures or social constructs that impact women and take on a lot of historical locations of women. And I try to reclaim space for the feminine in the current century. I do that through a lot of subversion tactics and also through a lot of experiments with various mediums. That's about it, I guess.
Incredible. Thanks so much, Deepali. And thanks for joining us, even though you just hopped off a trip, which I'm sure it's not super easy. And Sharon, last but not least, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm so happy to be here meeting everyone. I'm Sharon. I'm a Malaysian artist of Chinese ethnicity. I've got short black hair and I'm wearing a forest green t-shirt. I'm in my studio in Port Dickson. So I'm a visual artist. I've done a lot of things, like both my panel members here, I'm sure. Lately, I've been very concerned about healing our relationships to land and to place, especially having been in one place pretty much for the past 2 years. I'm doing printmaking. Yes, and I'm also very concerned. I also love making patterns, repeat patterns. So that's what I'm doing lately. Yeah.
Thanks so much, Sharon. It sounds like we really have a very, very interesting and provocative, artist with us to help us kind of have this. Yeah, what we hope to have in this next hour is to engage in conversation and unpack this idea of order a little bit more. No, really trying to think through, and maybe we can begin by opening up the conversation in that sense, like this sense of when we talk about this idea of order, as it is being explored also through this show, a distinct order. How do you understand and engage with it in your work? How is this manifesting? What is the question that you are trying to unpack and provoke, and maybe also throw an invitation for engagement with too? Dipali, you want to start? Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to try. So basically, in my practice, like I said, I work with a lot of social constructs that are happening. So I think for me, the order is something which is invisible, which kind of certain practices that we kind of follow blindly without questioning them. And then suddenly, you realize that, okay, that you don't feel comfortable or good about it, but you always get this answer that, oh, that's how it is done, and so you just continue to do that. And what I try to do is, in my practice, okay, let me talk about one example. Is, let's say I'm talking about female sexuality and female sexual pleasure, and so there is a particular construct in which this entire concept is kind of explained to the world, in terms of the binary, in terms of the androcentric behaviors that kind of are curtailed in this act of sexual pleasure. And where is women's place in this construct? So how is it that you kind of unpack, question these things, and how do you kind of try to subvert these ideas to bring to the foreground that female sexual pleasure is equally important in an act of sex. So that's something that that is one of the aspects of my art practice that I work on. So the way I do it is by using sex toys to make drawings and videos, which is basically, it is one of those, I use it as a symbol of, breaking the binary, so to say. And that's, yeah, so that's a little bit about one part of my art making that I do. So, yeah, so it's basically a social order which is invisible, and you try and question and investigate it, and then afterwards try and find experimental solutions to it. I mean, you can't say that, oh, you've made a big difference, but here is a standing that you give, maybe a shift in thinking of some sort in this. And of course, there's a lot of resistance that you face while you're doing it, not just from the outside world, but also from within you, because you're trying to break a system which you've been born and brought up with also. So that's, yeah.
Yeah, I think like what you're saying about how these particular social orders, and I think none is more obvious, I think, when you think about kind of sexuality and especially heteronormativity, and it's something very powerful when you make the invisibility of that order that is encoded, I suppose, into our bodies,
Yes.
and to really like even express it out very, very, very loudly by saying, I'm actually going to draw with sex toys, which is this almost like active expression of female desire that we don't hear very often, no? That's super amazing, and I think for somebody who presents as genderqueer like myself, I think that's also something that resonates very loudly with me, and maybe also connects to some of the work that you're working with, Josephine, around exploring this idea of beauty.
Yeah, I really would love to see your artwork made with sex toys. I was just thinking to myself, oh my gosh, I wonder what all the action was when they saw your work, and whether it was obvious that it was made with. It's very beautifully subversive. I think it's great. Yeah, beauty, there is a sense of order in people's ideas of what beautiful is. And it's so, its tentacles are in everyone's brains somehow, and how they see themselves, self-confidence, and how they interact with other people, and how they define what is acceptable, and also people's pursuit in changing their sense of what is beautiful with their own bodies, and how that has propped up a very big profiting industry. So order really, when it comes to beauty, permeates in so many different ways in our lives, in the seen and unseen. The seen when it comes to different types of media, even what we hear, and the unseen is how we relate to ourselves when we look at ourselves in the mirror, or when we feel our bodies, or when we look down at our bodies. How do we have a sense of confidence or self-love? And disrupting that order is quite important to me, because I have many different beliefs that are quite good and also quite toxic when it comes to accepting myself. And I understand, especially younger people, particularly young girls, who are under the weight of this suffocating order of how they should look like. And my work really is intended to open up the conversation about what defines your sense of order when it comes to what is beautiful. And through that, I hyper exaggerate using technology that people in the industry use to disguise reality of what people actually look like. And I over exaggerate it on my own body. And the reasons for doing that is because I want people to look at something that I personally think is quite interesting and beautiful, and offer that as a different option that can crack open the stifling sense of predictability when it comes to what is beautiful. Yeah.
I think you touched on many different things that are, like, super critical here, also about kind of this sense of self-desire, right? Like what Deepali was talking about, like what is pleasurable, what is like desirable, and this notion of self-desire, and how it's also maybe this beauty is especially super contentious. And I'm so curious to also see your work now and the kinds of technologies that you're using. I think you both speak about engaging with technology as you're unpacking this project, and I would love to hear more, and how technology is also has this complex relationship with capitalism, which has a complex relationship, I think, with this this colonial project of the desirable subject, right? Also, so I think all of these things kind of enmesh with each other and speak to each other in different sense. And Sharon, like, do you also kind of engage with different? I think you do. You sort of engage with technology in a different way, thinking through like and feeling different patterns maybe. But yeah, I'm curious. What is your take on this? On how you are thinking about order and rupturing or disrupting it?
Yeah, I think relating to what Deepali and Josephine have said, I feel it's about a sense of solidity in oneself, like especially as women, and also I observe perhaps the same things that you're observing, Josephine, in young girls, searching for this sense of solidity, but there's always forces impinging upon us all the time, and especially that of technology. like in this call right now, like we're sort of like divided into this grid, and you all seem so close, but there's actually a great distance, and it's structuring our conversation a great deal. And yet there's a pattern emerging, and I see a beautiful pattern, and often the pattern is not visible but can be felt. And so there's a beautiful pattern here of how women take one thing from another and they're sort of weaving it onwards in this quite generous way. Like Josephine took something that Dipali said, and then, and then Jack sort of weaving it onwards. I find that that's very beautiful. And I don't know if I want to give it a name almost. Maybe I might go as far as giving it a pattern, drawing this pattern, because pattern has rhythm. It's about the repeat and what's in the in-between. But you don't necessarily have to pin it down and name it. I feel that could be a way of escape and also a way of disobedience, not being legible. But it takes a lot of faith in oneself, because we're all searching for that outside validation. I feel that so strongly. But I'm also trying to listen to deeper signals, I guess. Signals that are not just about resisting that order that must be resisted. So searching for like a more solid pattern to guide, I think, to guide my interactions and guide the next step that I should take in these like really uncertain times. And I look to my place here, even though it's really imperfect. Port Dickson is an oil and gas town. I live literally 200 meters from an oil refinery. Yeah, so that's a lot. It's a lot to live with. But I realize that all the animals and flora and fauna are living with the same thing, living amongst trash and not conducive circumstances. Like I'm dying. I feel myself. My death is accelerated every day. I feel it. I hear it because of the noise pollution. So I just, there's a lot of fear in me, a lot of doubt, and I don't know how we should all move forward. And yeah, it's very nice to be connected to all of you for just this short while. Yeah, but I have this fear. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for really kind of opening up also for this conversation to present with some vulnerabilities that we are sort of really, we do live in kind of anxious times. We are trying our best. And I think probably every one of us in this conversation are involved in some way on deep reflection and deep engagement with this question of, to me, order is about understanding systems and structures and flows of power and how they are manifesting. But that's that's the feminist activist in me. And I really love some of the questions that you've already surfaced to each other, like Dipali, what was the reaction to your art, like when you really bring something that is so hidden away into like a public space in the form of like expression. And then also the question about the sort of the liminal space, right, between being seen and recognized, and at the same time not wanting to be legible in the current order and the current ways of being seen. And I think everyone is sort of involved in this project in different ways, like Josephine with younger girls. And yeah, I'm just going to open it up and see what you might want to, what that has raised for you.
Sorry, you mean how does that affect the work? Sorry, I didn't get the question correctly.
So I guess specifically for you, Dipali, how has what has the response been when you kind of like, you take something into one space that's usually closed and hidden into a more public space? And maybe whether you, like, what are some of the polarities that you yourself, engage with or contest with? Yeah.
Yeah, so one of the one of the very interesting feedbacks that I got to some of my works that I was showing was from some of the male collectors where I was showing the work, and it was about so when you talk about sexuality and you talk about female sexuality, the conversation, I don't know, somehow always goes to the erotic, okay, and so erotic and the beauty, and so it kind of weaves in back with Josephine's idea of beauty, and so the man was like, oh, but where is the eroticism in the work? I do not see the eroticism in the work. And I said, well, what do you mean? I mean, can you define that a little bit more? So it's like, there is supposed to be this beauty and this delicateness and, this little bit of, the flow and, the specific ideas of the erotic and the beauty that he was trying to get at. Okay, and saying that sometimes, just showing your wrist is a symbol of the erotic kind of a thing, and well, actually I was very grateful to him when he gave me that feedback, and I was like, yeah, but does it always have to be that? And it goes back to Josephine's ideas of beauty where she exaggerates everything. So I was like, why can't there be new definitions of the erotic which don't necessarily fall into those structures of beauty and erotic? And you could, and like Sharon says, sometimes you don't know how to name them, okay, but they do exist, and that's probably where your individual preferences come into play to some extent. And so why is it so difficult for you to accept that, is my question, to him. Like, what's so difficult about it? Can you, like, can't you just let it be? Can you not like kind of try to absorb and move forward with it? Do you have to name it all the time, kind of a thing? So yeah, that was an interesting feedback, and then that gave me this idea that no, okay, I'm going to do it the way I want to do it. It doesn't have to fall into your idea of beauty. I'm just going to go with mine. So I think that's where when you're there is this order of the androcentric way of beauty and things like that, and then you try to do something which is not, which is probably not even feminine, maybe, because that again makes it fall into another different kind of an order. So in that order there is a difference, right? And so how do you so and that's what creates the plurality. So that's how I want it. Maybe it's very different from Josephine's idea or Sharon's idea or Jack's idea of it. So, and I think that the whole idea is that one should let those pluralities exist, because we don't have to always spell out the solidarity up front, if that's what I'm trying to get at. You don't have to have that common goal right at the beginning all the time. I think that's also something that Hannah Arendt says, something to that extent. She also talks about it in her writings. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that was an interesting experience.
No, it's really great. It sounds like you're kind of like, also creating spaces, ambivalent spaces that has no definition. It speaks actually really, really strongly to what Sharon was also talking about, the non-legible space, no?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
It's like that thing about maybe people want rules to follow, but that's not, rules are not very sexy. Hey, I mean, like I hereby consent to, and I'll sign the thing, and like, okay, let's that's sort of I suppose the heat of the sexiness, like sexiness and libidinous, the thing that's sort of fiery and alive, doesn't really conform to being too contracted. Like we have a contract about how we should behave. Yeah. I was thinking about something that you said about the not, yeah, not the not speaking, because maybe a set of processes, you know, as opposed to yeah, thinking of things in terms of processes and protocols uh, um, can and also hospitality. You know, these sort of warm kind of structures that can I mean help us to sort of so that there are kind of structures of governance that govern human relations between each other, whether male or female, or just, you know, between each other, because those are still important, I think. It's just that, like, there are other ways, I suppose. They're just other ways of relating. Yeah, yeah.
Josephine, I see you have a deep thought that you want to share.
I was just thinking about actually the discussion itself and how it has many different strands, really, and I feel as if we're stirring a pot of ideas. Yeah, that's actually what I was thinking about. But yeah, I'll just keep on listening. And
do you want to take us down?
Input.
Do you want to take us down one strand, like, yeah, like something that, you know, sort of pops up for you, or something?
Well,
that
Dipali was just going to say something. Actually.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
I was saying something. What Sharon just said, you know, about those processes and protocols and the structures, and then, you know, you're trying to go against them or find your own way to do it, and then, you know, something from the last time that we discussed. And Sharon said that, you know, it does become very tiring to do that. So Sharon, do you want to elaborate on that aspect of it, what we were talking about the last time?
I think what I'm searching for is a kind of flow of relations. Where I think the best way to put it would be to sort of give an ideal in my mind about, so let's take a library, for example. Like where you go to a library, people sort of just know how to behave. Yeah, where it's like you people get it, you know? And so how did we build that idea of the library together? Because it didn't just come out of the cosmos like that. So people know library is a place that it's a community place. So people are sharing the space. You know, you should be mindful about your noise level and so on. But the idea of the library also isn't fixed. So you know, more and more it's becoming a place where people can come to use the internet. Homeless people can get out of the cold for a while. That it's how were those protocols, you know, agreed upon? It seems kind of easy. Yeah, something like that, I think. Yeah.
Or even the park, no? Like, how do we know how to use the park? And the park is a really interesting idea of space and relating to each other, because who takes care of the park? Whose park is it supposedly belonging to? And then this park becoming this political space also during times when we are saying we're going to occupy a public space and use it for our purposes. So I think, yeah, sort of making me think about that.
Exactly. Yeah, because like just a little bit about the park, because like but there are also stories that we are being told today. I think, like, a very strong message that is sort of a narrative that's being put out is that humans are bad. They will ruin a commons like a park. or a library. You need rules, otherwise we are barbarians. Yeah. So I don't know how, yeah, you all feel about that. Yeah, where I'm like, no, no, I we the opposite is true. Everything in nature is not it's not red in tooth and claw. It's about cooperation, sort of allowances and affordances. You know, the bees afford this thing for this plant so that this plant can flower at that time. It's getting the signal, and and then so we can get the honey, and it's just a whole pattern of balance that there's no boss. So yeah, yeah, something like that. Yeah. Yeah.
So I
And
guess sense of order is important for some things. I guess that's what I'm gleaning from what you're saying, Sharon.
mm,
A sense of order is important, especially for communal spaces, because we don't want complete chaos. Some people love chaos, and that physically and can emotionally hurt other people. So it's a given for me when I live a day-to-day life. There's certain orders that I do appreciate, even if it goes to services that is for everybody. I appreciate that organizational order. The order that I am fighting against or butting heads against, shall we say, through my work is the expectancy to be a certain type of person to get validation from other people. And that order is, as I've mentioned before, extremely suffocating for some and detrimental for people's mental state. And I always appreciate the power of art to be able to smash the constrictions of order in people's minds and how they interact with other people and themselves. Yeah, it's extremely important art to do that.
It also sounds, actually it sounds like what I'm hearing is also that there's different kinds of order, right? There's order that sort of, it's actually, it exists, and our role is really to observe and to kind of like be able to see what sorts of what these relationships are and how they take care of each other. And I think sort of that's something that exists in, like, we are interrelated as beings in sharing the same space, no? Like humans believe we're outside of nature, but we are nature. Like we are nature. So like I think that, and then I think that the thing that keeps popping up again and again is this is, I guess, for me, how capitalism has sort of intervened and created all kinds of instruments between us and our ability to really just kind of be in adaptive systems of relating to each other, maybe. And that's kind of a little bit of what's happening. And it has instead maybe even replaced it with stuff which is invisible but extremely rigid and really suffocating, which is what you were speaking about also, Josephine. And I wonder how, like, as somebody who's kind of also really directly engaging with industry in this question of the invisibility, the insidiousness of this invisible order that I guess even organizes how we appreciate ourselves or feel like we can be appreciated. Where, and you were alluding to this already, like how does art fit? How is your artistic practice, and how can art create a space where we are also being a bit unruly and really like a different way of looking at things?
I have been asked from several companies to use my art practice to help people through workshops that I've created, to use my art practice to help people engage with others to reveal themselves. Well, how I would say is, say if you contacted me to devise a work practice, devise a workshop, and I always go to my art practice to inform the workshops. And the workshops generally are about how people can be able to go within themselves to see the different facets of themselves and share that with other people and create an alternative idea of what their face should look like, but it's informed by their different personalities from within. So people wear masks all the time. They wear masks for a myriad of different reasons, whether it's something as wearing makeup, or whether it's something as self-confidence when they're in a situation of complete doubt, or whether it's they are trying to create a persona so they can get far ahead in different work scenarios, or even personal, intimate scenarios. And masks are very important. However, some people find it difficult to take that mask off. And my workshops are about giving a different type of mask that isn't necessarily about what your sexual value is, or how successful or confident when it comes to monetary things. Because confidence is important, but sometimes confidence can come from a place of where you are in competition with other people, or it can come from a place where it's from a place of lacking actually confidence. But moving on from that, my art practice is always constantly about piercing and really just splintering this rigidity of what it means to be perfect and desirable. And I engage with different companies and also schools to really get people to see themselves from within and create a different type of visual identity, and talk about what it means to be different versions of yourself, or to really embrace the different facets of yourself that isn't necessarily encouraged. And what does that look like? By talking about it and by creating this alternative image, which is kind of like a mask. So yeah, that's the things that I do to speak to people in a very vivid and engaging way, aside from creating artwork, but really getting to the nitty-gritty of what it is. And that's through conversation and through really encouraging them, giving them the space to figure out of what is molding my sense of self. Yeah.
I have a thought. Coming from what you said, Josephine, and it relates to Dipali's work. I think there's an idea of, because like to break the perfection, and break the idea of perfection, beauty as perfection. Sorry, this thread is it's coming from somewhere and it's leading to somewhere. But the main idea that I have is like trust. So like how like certain environments, for example, like if you're doing a workshop, and we're seeking to create like different relations between each other, and that's what art can do quite well, where it's sort of it's not an environment where like you people are suspicious of each other, where you know that they'll be I got to look out for my back because like nobody's got my back basically. Yeah, and maybe that relates to Dipali's. Yeah, that's how I was getting to that thought. Yeah, Dipali's idea about female sexuality and relating in a good and healthy way to desire and yeah. and that has to do with trust. Yeah. So like for me, my experience, like I don't trust anyone. I find myself that has grown as a real feeling, yeah, in the past year. A lot of things that I thought I could trust, I don't, and especially what I see on social media. So people are saying one thing, but the reality is quite different. So I find that difficult to deal with, and that's why like I sort of return to the land as a place where like, can I trust this? Can I trust this relationship with the land, where like the land will provide for me my water until it can't, but if it can, it will still continue to provide unconditionally. It isn't limitless, but I can trust that. And I have been on the land where, because I have a relationship, I think I'm not quite sure how it happens, but because I have a relationship with this tree, and that there are ants on the tree that don't bite me, and they are fire ants, but they have never bitten me when I sit on that tree, and I don't understand how that happens. But every time I go there, I'm very afraid, but I try to trust. And so far, this trust has held, and I don't really know how that works. How does that work, Deepali? How does that work?
But you're so right, Sharon. You know that's this whole idea of trust, and from there, the ideas of empathy, kind of stem. And it's so difficult nowadays for anyone to trust anybody else. You know, it's become like that, and that's where I think the problem has become the lack of humaneness that we tend to not, or it's kind of like just layered with all these new ideas of capitalism and orders and structures and systems. So we've become so involved in solving these issues, that we've just forgotten that basic trust and empathy that we can operate from there. And I feel like sometimes I feel like just saying too much also kind of spoils the whole thing, which is, it comes back to this language, the problem of language, where you try to define everything, define, and it's just like spoils the whole game, and then you're trying to kind of fit into all the definitions that are there, and you forget about this whole idea of trust and empathy. That's what I think, is problematic, and so I feel like there's a need to bring back that. And I don't know, like Sharon's doing it practically by sitting on that tree despite her fear, and she's succeeding. So I think it is, as artists, I think the whole idea is that let's just keep pushing those boundaries and learn to trust the other, and this whole idea of the other, and kind of like, empathize with it and come back. I don't know how that works when it comes to talking about the patriarchy and androcentric behaviors and capitalism and things like that. How do you build that trust back? I mean, and is it necessary for me as a woman to do the work again and again? Is the question I'd like to put out. It's like, okay, I'm ready to trust again. Am I? Or like the ants that don't bite. Okay, I'm going to try again and again, so that it bridges that gap, because it is important to bridge that gap. It's not about the binary, or it's not about always about that the patriarchy is bad, or the male dominance and things like that. I mean, we have to learn to kind of move forward from that as well. So yeah, but it's a good point. I feel like there is a need to move on from that.
Can I ask a question to Partly? What do you mean by trust? Like, why did you bring up trust? Or is it because Sharon brought up trust? Who are we trusting in the context of what we're talking about?
So when we're talking about orders, we're trying to within an order, kind of trying to resist the orders or these systems. Okay, while we're doing that, and it is necessary to do that, okay, so that we can find the space for ourselves, right? And so that's what we're doing through the art that we're making, okay? But at the same time, we can't keep on not trusting that order might also, change or might become fluid. Is it making sense?
Yeah.
Something to that extent. I'm not sure if I'm explaining it correctly, but I feel like if you're taking 5 steps forward, then those ants are also kind of understanding, and they kind of like in their own language explaining something to you, and there is this connection, and that's what I'm talking about, that connection, by just being a little more fluid and being a little more soft in that sense.
So I
Does it
think
make
what
sense?
I'm hearing is that it's like I mean, the last couple of years has been hard for everybody. And it's not that it's just been hard in the last couple of years. I think the last couple of years is we can't run away from how hard it is. And we're kind of forced to confront a lot of things. And just to connect back to what was shared earlier in the conversation about being vulnerable, and actually this sense of like being, actually we're kind of scared, and we're vulnerable. And how do we then sort of sit in uncomfortable spaces that has no definition, that has no names yet? And how are you, as also artists, making spaces where we can create spaces where people can sit with things that we're scared of? Whether it's about, afraid of this rigidity of what it means to be perfect and beautiful, and kind of even being scared of that ourselves. And when you were sharing about the work that you're doing about playing with this idea of masks and having that as a space where you can bring up like things that you're scared of. Maybe that's also what I'm hearing in terms of a way to engage with this sense of order that can be so stifling. Like that's what we do also. We create these liminal spaces, uncomfortable spaces. Yeah.
I was having a recent conversation with someone about young people of today in London, mainly. And from what I keep on hearing, I don't know, maybe Jack, you might have an opinion on this, is young people's investigation, experimentation, subversion, play when it comes to identity and being able to converse with each other more freely about that. And I thought to myself, this is their way of going against the order of things when it's about how you should see yourself or how you should express yourself or who you should love. And I was thinking, is it more heightened? Because I keep on hearing this, young people going through this. Is this more heightened because this past few years have had so much disorder that they want to have some kind of control over something? I don't know, just kind of thinking and putting it out there.
I think sorry.
Oh no, go for it, Jack. Because I'm putting it out there, just thinking about when something is so disordered that to have some type of control, you try and or maybe there's just so much disruption around from the order that you're used to have some type of control, you initiate a disorder of your own. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of actually what this whole conversation also has been about. Really identifying the systems and structures that have had very harmful effects on us, in different ways, because they construct our idea of what's important or how we value certain things, etc. And then really trying to mess this up by making it unruly and undefinable, non-legible, and not not a space where you can throw a lot of assumptions in and continue. And this is not easy work. It's really hard work. It takes time. It takes like all of those things that you've all been sharing about what you're doing and like, the spaces that you make. And then you come to a point where, okay, so where are we landing at this moment now that we've thrown and opened up, like, we've messed up the previous order. So where are we landing at this moment? And then it's almost like, okay, where are we landing and what's the next step? And I really love that it's leadership of new generation of people who's going like, this gender and that's the most insidious form of order, right? Gender, sexuality, and then like all kinds of ethnicity or descent and like the colorism that we then inherit. But it's the most insidious form, so it's actually exuberant times, maybe, when we are confused and when like, yes, change is happening. We are all confused.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I think where we're landing is a quick. I don't think we're even going to land. Maybe we just continue this way, Yeah. And then I feel like, okay, I don't know if this is going to settle down. It doesn't seem like right now,
Yeah,
And
before the next step, yeah.
Yeah, and that's the scary part. So if you've been brought up with systems and orders, okay, like I was born and brought up in a very conventional family in India, okay, so if you've been brought up with those systems and orders and then you're trying to kind of resist and subvert, okay, after a while you're like, oh my God, now how much more work? Okay, how much more work do I have to put in? And then your entire life you're just putting in the work, But I having said that, yes, it might be tiring, it might be confusing, but I think it's the most interesting because something very interesting comes out of it all the time, and that's the trust that you have within you that okay, this is going to land in a very, very unruly, chaotic space, and you're going to like it. Right, Sharon? Sharon's laughing. Sharon's like, oh my God, I'm already here. What are you talking about, Dipali? I'm already here. Look at me. Look at me.
This question about like young people. I thought immediately about. So I collaborated last year with a Rohingya poet. So he's based in Cox's Bazar refugee camp in Bangladesh. And he was saying that extremism is a real risk for the youth, because when you've been chased from your homeland where everything makes sense to this place where nothing makes sense, you're going to want to search for something that seems solid. And what is more solid than religious fundamentalism? So that is a real threat. And I there could be more young ones turning to religion, could be, or just like other kind of cults. I mean, I'm not saying religions are a cult. Excuse me. But like just more extreme groups of belonging. I think that is a real risk. And so for me, as coming back to that question about what's sort of the function of art, the role, I think, is to be a conduit, to give birth to what is trying to come through in terms of there is the law of that we are all bound by, which is the law of nature, the land, that it is a law. And I think we all need to return to that, because I don't really see another way. I don't really see another ism coming through. And all the signals that we're getting as a species. This is a species level conversation. It's no longer a national conversation or a race conversation. This is species level. And that's why I think we as artists need to be we need to be searching what is trying to come through us to provide the stories that are going to put us in another direction, you know? Yeah, we're sort of in this dark tunnel right now, I think.
Yeah, thanks for that, Sharon. And I think that's also like a really nice way for us to maybe close this conversation, which is really to see, okay, so what do we do? Like, where do we take this now that we have had this sort of exploratory, what's our next exhalation and next step? And what I guess can artists do to create that response or that connection or that affinity or that engagement with, where do we go from here?
Be more bold with our art. Get people asking more questions and trying to emphasize with how other people feel. That's one solution. That's one action that we can do. Yeah. Art is powerful, so it can change people's minds, or it can just get people seeing a little bit more about how other people feel.
Yeah, that life force, more life force, through the art. Yeah, be bold. Yeah. I think this is, be bold.
Yeah. I would say also just celebrate the differences. Like, difference is human, So don't try to fit into boxes. Just, be more, and of course, like, be more human and trust a little bit more.
Be more human. Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, I love it. Be more human. It's okay to be unruly. We are all different. It's fine to be like, trust is something that is precious, but we kind of like, need to challenge ourselves to it. And yeah. And more life force through art. Sort of be a conduit to the power. Yeah.
All that messy feelings stuff. That wet and squishy, like vulnerable shit. Yeah. That one.
Yeah. Keep that shit. That shit is important.
And trusting in oneself as well.
Yeah, that's so true. Yes.
Yeah. Perfect. That's beautiful. Thank you so much. Yeah, this has been really, truly not only deeply insightful, but also inspiring. I'm very appreciative to be in this conversation with you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.